The muzzle flash lit up the abandoned Incheon factory like lightning frozen in time. Gunfire echoed off rusted machinery, each shot multiplying into a chorus of violence. Betrayal hung thick in the air, mixing with gunpowder and the metallic taste of fear. Voss saw the shooter's finger tighten on the trigger. Saw the barrel swing toward Tae-sung Lee as he dove for cover. 40 feet separated them. She had maybe 2 seconds to make a choice. She didn't hesitate. 8 months pregnant beneath custom tactical gear, Kira positioned herself between the man she protected and the bullets meant to end him. Her body became a wall of flesh and determination. The first round hit her vest center mass. Impact like a sledgehammer. The second tore through her left shoulder, white-hot agony exploding down her arm. Still, she didn't move. 3 more bullets hammered her chest plate in rapid succession. Ribs fractured. The baby inside her kicked frantically, responding to trauma with panicked movement. Every maternal instinct screamed at her to protect the life she carried, but a deeper instinct refused to let her step aside. The 6th bullet grazed her right side, cutting a burning line just above her swollen belly. Blood bloomed across black tactical fabric, spreading like spilled ink. Her knees buckled. But before she fell, Kira raised her weapon one final time and put 2 rounds through the shooter's skull. Tae-sung caught her as she collapsed, his arms impossibly strong, cradling her as they both went down. Blood soaked through his expensive suit, staining his hands crimson. Kira! No! His scream tore through the warehouse, raw and primal. The Mafia boss facade shattered completely, leaving only a man watching his world end. Her lips moved, barely audible over dying gunfire. Protected you. That's what I do. Her eyes rolled back. Consciousness fled like water through open fingers. 6 years earlier, Seoul belonged to those who understood that power wasn't taken, it was inherited, cultivated, and ruthlessly maintained. Tae-sung Lee stood 32 floors above Gangnam, watching neon lights pulse through the city like a living heartbeat. Behind him, Club Elysium thrived, Korea's elite drinking $1,000 bottles, never asking where the money really came from. Below the surface, Shadow Lotus operated with surgical precision. High-end clubs laundering millions through VIP bottle service. Tech startups existing solely to move cryptocurrency across borders. Real estate turning dirty cash into clean assets. On paper, Tae-sung was a legitimate businessman. In reality, he was the apex predator in Seoul's underworld. But legitimacy was what he craved more than power. His father had died in a warehouse much like the one where Kira would later take 6 bullets for him. Executed by rival gangs while 14-year-old Tae-sung watched from behind a shipping container, learning that violence was hereditary. The old man had ruled through fear and brutality, building an empire that existed only in shadows. When they buried him, Tae-sung made a promise. He would be different. Smarter. The Viper clan is moving into Itaewon, Min-jae reported, his second-in-command standing behind him. Hyunwoo Park is opening 3 new establishments. We both know what they really are. Tae-sung's reflection in the window showed a man in a Tom Ford suit, hair styled with precision expected of Seoul's business elite. No visible tattoos, no gang colors. Just another young tech entrepreneur, to anyone who didn't look closely at the hardness in his eyes. Let him have Itaewon, Tae-sung said quietly. We don't need every neighborhood. Your father would have gone to war. My father died because he thought every slight required blood. Tae-sung turned to face Min-jae. I'm not my father. I'm building something that will outlast both of us. But even as he said it, he felt the Glock's weight in his shoulder holster. Legitimacy was still a dream deferred. The Gangnam meeting tomorrow night, Min-jae continued. The Busan group is bringing muscle. They don't trust the terms. They shouldn't. The terms favor us. Tae-sung's jaw tightened. Something felt wrong, instinct whispering warnings he couldn't articulate. I want someone new on my detail. Someone from outside our organization. Someone the Busan group won't have intelligence on. You don't trust our own men? I trust them to be predictable. Predictable gets you killed. Tae-sung pulled out his phone, scrolling to a name, Voss. Executive Protection Services. Set up the meeting. American contractor. Former military. That's all I know. He had no way of knowing this decision would change everything. The negotiation was supposed to be routine. 3 representatives from the Busan Syndicate, neutral territory behind a high-end Gangnam restaurant, a simple exchange of terms to prevent bloodshed. Tae-sung had done 100 of these meetings. He didn't see the Viper clan coming until bullets shattered the night. The attack came from the rooftop, suppressed gunfire that killed his driver instantly. Min-jae took a round to the leg and went down hard. 2 of his security team returned fire, but the angles were wrong, the ambush too well planned. Hyunwoo Park had been watching, waiting. Tae-sung pressed against brick, weapon drawn, calculating odds that were rapidly deteriorating. For shooters on the roof, at least 2 blocking the alley exit. The Busan group had scattered. He was pinned with wounded men and limited ammunition. Then she appeared. Kira Voss came from the side entrance like violence was a language she'd been born speaking. She stood nearly 6 feet tall, skin dark as polished mahogany against the gray Seoul night. She moved with fluid precision that seemed impossible, taking down the first shooter with 2 rounds before most people would have processed the situation. The second shooter turned toward her. She was already moving, using a dumpster for cover while firing with accuracy that spoke of countless hours on the range. Her movements flowed, Krav Maga efficiency mixed with something raw, something learned in streets where hesitation meant death. A third shooter emerged from the rooftop access, trying to flank her. She anticipated it, rolled left, came up firing. The man dropped. For seconds. 3 targets neutralized. Move. She shouted at him, her voice carrying distinctive American English, Chicago South Side. Back entrance now. Tae-sung grabbed Min-jae and hauled him toward the door she'd indicated. Kira provided suppressing fire, controlled bursts that kept the remaining Viper clan shooters pinned. She used darkness and angles the way most people used weapons. By the time police sirens wailed in the distance, the alley was empty except for bodies and shell casings. Tae-sung stood in a closed convenience store's back room, staring at the woman who'd just saved his life. She was checking her weapon with practiced hands, ejecting the magazine, clearing the chamber. Up close, she was even more striking, high cheekbones, eyes that missed nothing, muscular build that spoke of discipline and training. Her tactical vest bore no insignia, no company logo. Professional ghost work. "You move like shadows," Tae-sung said in English, his Korean accent thick but comprehensible. She looked up, assessing him. Not as a target or threat, but as a person. "You're Tae-sung Lee. Shadow Lotus. I've heard the name. And you are?" "Kira Voss. Executive Protection, independent contractor." She finished her weapons check and stood to her full height, nearly eye level with him. "You were 30 seconds from dying in that alley. Your security team is competent, but they're not prepared for coordinated assault. And you are." A ghost of a smile touched her lips. "I was Army. 75th Ranger Regiment, then private military work in West Africa. Moved to Seoul 5 years ago. Been doing protection details for expats, corporate executives, anyone who pays well and doesn't ask stupid questions." Tae-sung found himself intrigued. A Black American woman, former military, working security in a city that still stared at foreigners who didn't fit the homogeneous mold. The audacity required to carve out space in a culture that didn't readily make room for outsiders spoke to strength beyond physical capability. "I need someone like you," he said directly. "Personal security. Close protection. The work is complicated. The pay is substantial." She studied him for a long moment, weighing options, calculating risks. Complicated means dangerous. Dangerous means bodies. "I don't do gang wars, Mr. Lee. I'm not asking you to fight my wars. I'm asking you to keep me alive while I try to end them." His tone was steady. "There's a difference." Something in his words reached her. She tilted her head slightly, reassessing. "What's the real offer?" 200 million won annually, plus bonuses. Private transportation, medical coverage, discretionary equipment budget. "You work directly for me, answer to no one else." You walk away anytime you want, no questions, no consequences. That's a lot of money for a bodyguard. You're not a bodyguard. You're insurance. Tae-sung extended his hand. 1-month trial. If it doesn't work, you walk away with full severance. Do we have an agreement? Kira looked at his hand, processing. A woman who'd left Chicago for Seoul, who'd traded American military structure for independent contracting chaos in a foreign country, didn't make decisions lightly. Finally, she took his hand. Her grip was firm, calloused from weapons and training. 1 month. But Mr. Lee, understand something. I protect you, I don't enable you. I won't be part of anything that crosses my lines. I wouldn't expect anything less. Neither of them could have known that this handshake in a closed convenience store, made over the cooling bodies of a failed ambush, was the beginning of something that would transcend professional boundaries. That 5 years later, their lives would be so intertwined she'd carry his child while stopping bullets with her own body. That their worlds were already connected by threads neither understood, pulling them toward a destiny written in blood and sacrifice. All they knew was that something had shifted. An alliance had formed. In Seoul's underworld, alliances were the only currency that mattered more than fear. Neither knew this ambush would change everything or that their worlds were already connected in ways they couldn't imagine. The first 6 months, Kira was just a job. Or at least, that's what Tae-sung told himself. She moved through his world with efficiency that bordered on artistry. The armored Mercedes became her domain. Front passenger seat, eyes constantly scanning mirrors and side streets for threats that might emerge from Seoul's endless maze of concrete and neon. Long nights in rain-soaked warehouses along the Han River, watching shipping containers that officially held electronics, but actually concealed currency bound for offshore accounts. Business trips to Busan where Tae-sung met with old families who still remembered when Jopik gangs ruled through street violence instead of spreadsheets. Kira absorbed it all without judgment, which was perhaps what first drew him to her. 3 months in, during a Busan trip, she saved his life for the second time. They'd been leaving a meeting with the Houndy faction. Tae-sung had just negotiated a profit-sharing agreement worth millions. The knife came from behind, a young enforcer trying to make a name. Kira caught the attacker's wrist mid-thrust, twisted with leverage from years of close-quarters combat training, and put him face-first into pavement hard enough to crack teeth. In the car afterward, Tae-sung broke the professional silence. You didn't have to learn Korean for this job. Kira kept her eyes forward. Hard to protect someone when you can't understand the threats being made against them. Most of my security team has worked for me for years. Half of them barely speak Korean better than you do now after 3 months. I'm not most of your security team. She glanced at him briefly. You hired me because I'm different. I figured I should live up to that. The conversation ended there, but something had shifted. By month 6, professional boundaries had begun to erode. Tae-sung arranged his schedule so their time together extended beyond strict necessity. Business dinners where her presence was tactically unnecessary, yet he insisted she attend, positioning her at the table instead of standing watch. Your men are starting to talk, Min-jae warned. They're wondering why the American gets privileges they don't. She's proven herself more capable than most of them combined, Tae-sung replied. If they have a problem with that, they're welcome to find employment elsewhere. But he knew Min-jae was right. In the hierarchical world of Korean organized crime, Tae-sung's treatment of Kira violated unspoken rules. She was foreign, female, outside traditional power structures, yet she held more of his trust than men who'd served his family for decades. Kira navigated her own complicated relationship with Seoul. As a black woman in a city where foreigners who didn't fit East Asian features drew constant stares, she learned to build armor from attention. But loneliness was different. No training could fully defend against it. She found small pockets of belonging. The ajama who ran the tteokbokki stand near her apartment, always giving her extra fish cakes. The expat community in Itaewon. The elderly Korean language tutor who corrected her pronunciation with patient insistence. Working for Tae-sung added new dimensions to her isolation. Other security personnel kept their distance. She existed between worlds. Too foreign for the Korean criminal network, too embedded for the legitimate expat community. Tae-sung was the first person in Seoul who seemed to see her completely. The way he listened when she spoke, actually absorbed her tactical assessments instead of dismissing them, treated her observations with weight. It created a connection that felt dangerous precisely because it felt real. 7 months in, during a late-night stakeout, Kira asked the question that had been building. Why are you really doing this? The legitimate business ventures, the transition away from traditional operations. You could rule this city the old way for 30 years. So why change? Tae-sung was quiet for so long she thought he might not answer. My father died when I was 14, he finally said. Executed in a warehouse over a territory dispute that meant nothing. I watched from behind a shipping container. He thought bringing me would teach me about business. He paused. It taught me this life has an expiration date. That violence eventually bankrupts everyone who trades in it. I want to build something that doesn't require my son to watch me die the same way. You don't have a son. Not yet. His eyes met hers. But someday, if I can build the kind of life worth inheriting, maybe I will. The moment stretched between them, charged with possibility and danger. Neither realized they were already writing that future together. The storm hit Seoul on a Tuesday night in late autumn, turning the city's neon into watercolor streaks against black glass. Tae-sung had asked Kira to his penthouse to review security footage, a legitimate request that both of them knew was an excuse. They sat side by side at his glass dining table, her shoulder brushing his as she leaned in to examine the screen. Neither moved away. His phone buzzed. Min-jae's name. Tae-sung answered, listened for 30 seconds, then stood abruptly. 3 men just forced entry into the building's parking garage, he said, already moving to the wall safe. They're heading for the private elevator. Kira was on her feet instantly, drawing her weapon. How long? 3 minutes, maybe less. The storm intensified outside, lightning illuminating the penthouse in stark white flashes. They took positions, Kira on one side of the room, Tae-sung behind the kitchen island, creating crossfire that would make entry costly. The private elevator chimed. 2 men came through fast. Kira put 2 rounds into the first before he'd fully cleared the threshold. Tae-sung took the second with a headshot. The third man used his fallen comrades as cover, returning fire while retreating. Kira tracked him, but the angle was wrong. Tae-sung moved, rolling from cover. The attacker adjusted. Kira fired, her round catching him in the shoulder, spinning him backward into the stairwell. Silence, broken only by the storm's fury and gunfire's aftermath. Tae-sung was already on the phone coordinating cleanup. But when he looked at her, she saw something raw beneath his control. You moved to draw his fire, he said quietly, almost accusatory. You exposed yourself so I could reposition. That's my job. Your job is to keep me alive, not sacrifice yourself doing it. I didn't sacrifice anything. I'm standing right here. But she was suddenly aware of how close they were standing, adrenaline making her hypersensitive to everything, the rain against windows, gunpowder smell, the way he looked at her. You could have been killed. So could you. She held his gaze. That's the reality of this life, Tae-sung. Every day could be the last one. He stepped closer. His hand came up, hesitated, then touched her cheek with gentleness that contradicted the violence they'd just survived. I can't lose you, he said, and the words carried weight beyond professional concern. This was the moment. The line they'd been approaching for months, clearly marked and impossible to ignore. Crossing it would complicate everything. She kissed him anyway. It started as collision more than kiss, adrenaline and proximity, and months of unspoken tension finding release. His hands tangled in her hair, hers gripped his shoulders. The storm raged outside and neither of them cared. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, reality settled over them. This is impossible, Kira said, but didn't step away. I know. Tae-sung's forehead rested against hers. My family, the expectations, the alliances I'm supposed to make, you don't fit into any of that. I'm your employee. Foreign. Black. Everything about this violates boundaries. I know that too. He pulled back to meet her eyes. I don't care. I should, but I don't. I've spent my entire adult life doing what's expected, what's strategic, what serves the plan. I'm exhausted, Kira. I'm so tired of pretending I don't feel what I feel. The vulnerability cut through her defenses. This can't be public. Your family can't know. Your organization can't know. One hint, and I become leverage against you. I'll protect you. I don't need protection, I need you to understand the risks. If this becomes known, it threatens everything you're building. One scandal involving the boss and his foreign bodyguard, and your credibility evaporates. Tae-sung was quiet, the businessman recognizing truth. Finally, he nodded. Then we keep it secret. No one knows. Not Min-jae, not anyone. Just us. Can you live with that? Can you? Kira thought about the loneliness that had defined her soul years, the constant outsider feeling. The connection with this man who saw her completely. I didn't come to Korea looking for love, she said slowly. I came looking for purpose. Somewhere along the way, you became both. He kissed her again, slower, deeper. A promise. Outside, the storm began to ease. The city reflected off wet surfaces, beautiful and temporary. Like everything worth having. For months into their secret affair, Kira stared at the pregnancy test in her apartment bathroom at 3 in the morning. 2 pink lines, undeniable under harsh fluorescent light. Pregnant. 8 weeks, maybe more. She slid down to the cold tile floor, hands shaking. This wasn't supposed to happen. She was working a job that regularly put her in life-threatening situations, involved with a man who couldn't publicly acknowledge their relationship, thousands of miles from any family who might help. The panic came in waves. Not just the physical danger, though that was real, but the cultural impossibility. Tae-sung couldn't marry her even if he wanted to. His family would never accept a foreign daughter-in-law, especially not a Black American bodyguard carrying an illegitimate heir. The alliances requiring a proper Korean marriage, connections strengthening Shadow Lotus's transition to legitimacy, all of it impossible with her. She thought about her options with cold calculation. Termination would be practical, clean. But her hand moved unconsciously to her stomach, and she knew that wasn't what she wanted. By dawn, she'd made her decision. Tae-sung knew something was wrong the moment he saw her face. They were in his Club Elysium office, supposed to be reviewing security protocols. What is it? He asked, closing and locking the door. I'm pregnant, she said, direct as always. 8 weeks. I took 3 tests to be sure. The words reshaped reality. Tae-sung felt his carefully constructed world shift on its axis. Are you okay? Physically? Not yet. I wanted to tell you first. Her voice remained controlled, but he saw tension in her jaw. Tae-sung, I know what this means. What it costs. I have options, and I'm willing to. Stop. The word came out sharper than intended. He gentled his tone, hands cupping her face. Tell me what you want. Not what's practical. What do you want? Her eyes closed. When they opened again, they were bright with unshed tears. I want to keep it. I want this baby. But wanting something doesn't make it possible. Why not? Because you can't marry me. Your family, your business, the alliances you need, none of that includes me and an illegitimate child. He wanted to argue, but the truth cut too deep. His mother had been pressuring him harder about marriage prospects. The transition to legitimacy required strategic connections. A secret child would be scandal enough to derail years of planning. But looking at Kira, strong, brave Kira who'd taken bullets for him and learned Korean and navigated Seoul's prejudices, he couldn't bring himself to care about strategy. I'll figure it out, he said firmly. The business, the family expectations, all of it. We'll find a way. How? Give me some credit. His hand moved to her stomach, still flat. The reality of a child, his child, felt terrifying and profound. But you need to step back from active security. No more situations where you're directly exposed to violence. Her body stiffened immediately. No. Kira, be reasonable. I am being reasonable. I'm pregnant, not disabled. Women have done extraordinary things while pregnant. I'm not made of glass, and I'm not being sidelined because of biology. This isn't about doubting your capability. This is my body, my choice, my assessment of what I can handle. Her voice carried steel. You don't get to make that call. Tae-sung wanted to argue, to insist protecting her and their child took precedence. But Kira's autonomy wasn't negotiable. Then promise me you'll be smart about it, he said finally. That you'll tell me if something changes. Promise we make these decisions together. She studied his face, evaluating sincerity. Finally, she nodded. Together. He pulled her close. I won't lose you. Either of you. I don't care what it takes. His hand found her stomach again, their fingers interlacing over the space where their child grew. The impossible was just another challenge to overcome. By the time Kira entered her 8th month, the world around them had grown more dangerous. The Viper clan had grown bold, pushing into territories Shadow Lotus had controlled for a decade. Hyunwoo Park seemed to sense weakness, though he couldn't possibly know the real source, that Tae-sung's attention was divided between Empire and the woman carrying his child. He hit 3 of our establishments last week, Min-jae reported during a tense meeting. Recruited away key personnel. Managers, security, accountants. He's offering double wages and protection from retaliation. Kira stood by the window, her tactical gear now custom-modified to accommodate her swelling belly. She'd refused to step back despite repeated requests. He's probing. Testing response times, seeing how much he can take before you push back. So we push back, Jimin said from across the table. Tae-sung's cousin had been increasingly vocal in recent meetings, his suggestions always leaning toward violence. Show him Shadow Lotus doesn't tolerate disrespect. And start a war that costs us everything we've built? Tae-sung kept his voice level. We respond strategically, not emotionally. Jimin's expression darkened. Your father wouldn't have hesitated. My father is dead because that's how he handled threats. The room fell silent, tension thick. Kira watched Jimin's face carefully, seeing something that troubled her, resentment that went deeper than disagreement over tactics. She'd been noticing it for months, the way he looked at Tae-sung during meetings, the subtle challenges to authority, the comments about the old ways being better. After the meeting, she stayed behind. Jimin is a problem. He's undermining you, suggesting you've gone soft. Jimin is family. He's frustrated, but he's loyal. Is he? Her hand went unconsciously to her stomach where the baby had been active all morning. Watch him. Trust your instincts. The intelligence about Hyunwoo's next move came through back channels, a summit proposal, neutral meeting to discuss territory division. But intelligence suggested it was a trap, an opportunity to eliminate Tae-sung while maintaining plausible deniability. It's too obvious, Tae-sung said, staring at the report. He knows I'll suspect an ambush. Or he wants you to think it's a trap so you don't show up, Kira replied. Wants to use your absence to claim you're weak, afraid to meet him. So I'm trapped either way. You show up. But you control variables. Choose the location, set terms, bring overwhelming force. The location he suggested is an abandoned factory in Incheon. Next Tuesday night. Kira's hand moved to her stomach, feeling strong movements of the child who would be born in less than a month. Every instinct screamed that this was wrong, that the timing was too convenient. But refusing would be interpreted as weakness. I'm coming with you, she said. You're 8 months pregnant. This is exactly the kind of situation that requires everyone you trust. She crossed to him. You're walking into a potential trap with a mole somewhere in your organization. You need people at your back who won't betray you. That's me. In her apartment that night, Kira couldn't sleep. She moved to the small desk where she kept personal files, documents her mother had given her before cancer claimed her. Letters in fading ink, photographs of people she didn't recognize, a confession that still didn't fully make sense about Korean heritage somewhere in her bloodline. She'd come to Seoul partly because of that revelation, searching for answers. The bodyguard work had been a means to stay while she quietly researched. She locked the documents away and returned to bed, one hand on her stomach. The Incheon summit was 5 days away. In Seoul's underworld, secrets don't stay buried. And the greatest betrayal was about to come from within his own blood. The night wore no moon, just endless black sky pressing down on Incheon's abandoned industrial district. Fog rolled off the yellow sea in thick banks, turning streetlights into diffuse halos and reducing visibility to dangerous minimums. Tae-sung's convoy arrived at 11:40, 3 black SUVs rolling through the fog. The factory had been dead for 15 years, left to rust while Korea surged into its digital future. Now it would serve as meeting ground for men whose business thrived in forgotten spaces. His security team deployed with practiced efficiency, sweeping the perimeter. Kira emerged from the second vehicle, movements careful but controlled. The tactical vest had been specially modified for her 8-month pregnancy, reinforced panels providing protection without compression. Beneath the gear, she felt the baby shift. Every instinct screamed warnings. Positions, she said quietly into her comm. She'd brought her own contractors, professionals who owed loyalty to her rather than Shadow Lotus's complicated politics. Inside the factory, footsteps echoed off concrete and corroded metal. The main floor stretched like a cathedral to dead industry, rusted machinery rising like monuments to obsolescence. Hyunwoo Park waited in the center, standing beside a makeshift table. He was younger than Tae-sung by 5 years, handsome in a way that masked cruelty. 4 of his men flanked him, visible and armed. Tae-sung Lee, Hyunwoo said, voice carrying across the space. Punctual as always. Let's skip pleasantries, Tae-sung replied. You requested this meeting. Let's discuss your proposal. Simple. Seoul has room for both organizations if we're smart about division. Hyunwoo gestured to crude maps on the table. Gangnam and Central Corridor remain yours. I take Itaewon, Hongdae, University districts. We split port access. Everyone makes more money than fighting over scraps. The proposal was actually reasonable, which made it more suspect. Hyunwoo was offering genuine value, the kind of deal that could work if either man trusted the other. And enforcement? Tae-sung asked. Joint Oversight Committee. 3 of yours, 3 of mine, neutral arbitration when disputes arise. Hyunwoo's smile was sharp. Unless you'd prefer the old way, blood for blood. The old way benefits no one. Then we agree. Hyunwoo extended his hand. Shadow Lotus and Viper Clan, legitimate partners. Kira's hand moved fractionally closer to her weapon. Something was wrong. The proposal too clean, Hyunwoo too accommodating. In her peripheral vision, she caught movement in the catwalks above, shadows shifting where no shadows should move. That's when Jimin stepped forward from the darkness, behind Hyunwoo's position. Tae-sung's cousin emerged like a ghost materializing, his face twisted with resentment and triumph. He wore tactical gear similar to Viper Clan security, weapon already raised. Hello, cousin, Jimin said, voice carrying betrayal's weight. I'm sorry it had to be this way. But you left me no choice. Tae-sung's face went through shock, recognition, fury in a heartbeat. Jimin. You're the mole. I'm the realist. You've been trying to go legitimate, make Shadow Lotus into some corporation instead of what it is. Father built this on strength and fear, and you've been dismantling everything for some fantasy of respectability. Our father is dead because of strength and fear. You're making worse mistakes. Trusting outsiders. Letting a foreign woman stand at your shoulder while ignoring your own blood. Jimin's expression twisted. Hyunwoo promised me leadership of traditional operations. All I had to do was deliver you. And you believed him? Hyunwoo shrugged. Family drama is so messy. Then he nodded. Gunfire erupted from 3 directions simultaneously. The first shot came from the catwalks, dropping Tae-sung's lead security man. That single shot ignited the powder keg. Gunfire erupted from 3 directions. Viper Clan shooters emerged from concealed positions in rusted machinery, muzzle flashes strobing the darkness. Hyunwoo dove behind the table. Jimin fired at his cousin. Kira's world narrowed to pure tactical assessment. 6 hostiles on ground level, for more elevated. The factory's acoustics turned gunfire into deafening cacophony. She returned fire, dropping a Viper Clan enforcer with 2 center mass shots. Then she saw the real threat. A shooter had flanked through the shadows, moving toward Tae-sung's position with professional skill. He had clear line of sight, weapon rising, finger tightening. Tae-sung was focused on Jimin, didn't see death coming from his blind side. Kira didn't think. Didn't calculate. Just moved. 8 months pregnant, she positioned herself between Tae-sung and the shooter. Her body became a wall. The first round hit center mass. The vest caught it, but impact felt like a sledgehammer to the chest. Air exploded from her lungs. Vision whited out. The vest held. She kept her feet planted. Didn't move. Wouldn't move. The second bullet tore through her left shoulder where vest coverage ended. White-hot agony exploded down her arm, pain so intense it threatened to buckle her knees. Blood bloomed instantly across tactical fabric. The baby kicked frantically inside her, responding to trauma with panicked movement. She felt it like a scream she couldn't hear. 3 more rounds hammered her chest plate in rapid succession. Massive impacts, one after another. Ribs fractured under the force. Something gave way inside her chest, bone cracking. The composite materials that had stopped the first bullets were compromised now, microfractures spreading. Pain radiated outward in waves. Still, she didn't move. The 6th bullet came low, grazing her right side just above her swollen belly. It cut a burning line across her ribcage, inches from her abdomen. Inches from the baby. Blood flowed freely, adding to the crimson spreading across her gear. Her knees started to buckle. The accumulated trauma was too much. But before she fell, Kira raised her weapon one final time. She locked her gaze on the shooter, saw his eyes widen as he realized she was still in the fight, still dangerous despite bleeding out. She squeezed the trigger twice. Both rounds hit center mass. The shooter's weapon clattered to concrete as he fell backward. Threat neutralized. Then her legs gave out completely. Tae-sung caught her before she hit the ground. His arms were suddenly there, cradling her as they both went down. His knees cracked against concrete. Blood from her wounds soaked through his suit, staining his hands crimson. Kira. No. The scream tore from his throat, raw and primal. The Mafia boss facade crumbled, leaving only a man watching his world shatter. Around them, the firefight continued. His security team pressed advantage, overwhelming Viper positions. Jimin was retreating. But Tae-sung saw none of it. His universe had contracted to the woman in his arms and the blood that wouldn't stop flowing. Kira's eyes fluttered open, struggling to focus. Her lips moved. "Protected you," she whispered. "That's what I do." Her hand moved weakly to her stomach. He understood. Pressed his own hand there, feeling for movement. The baby kicked against his palm, weak but present. "The baby's alive," he told her. "You're both alive. Stay with me." But her eyes were already rolling back. Consciousness slipping away as shock claimed her. "Medic!" Tae-sung screamed. "I need a medic now." The private clinic sat hidden in an upscale Gangnam neighborhood, its entrance unmarked except for a small brass plaque. Tae-sung had paid for this facility years ago, ensuring Shadow Lotus had access to medical care without police reports and government oversight. The ambulance screamed through Seoul's pre-dawn streets. Inside, medics worked with focused intensity, stabilizing Kira enough for transport while monitoring the fetal heartbeat. They rushed her through the service entrance. Dr. Yoon, a man in his 50s who'd served in the military during violent times, was already prepped and waiting. Even he paused when they wheeled Kira into the trauma bay, taking in the extent of her injuries and obvious pregnancy. 8 months, he asked, scrubbing in. Yes, Tae-sung answered. Can you save them both? Dr. Yoon met his eyes with brutal honesty from decades of battlefield medicine. I can try. But Mr. Lee, you need to understand, we're choosing between probabilities, not certainties. 6 bullet impacts, massive internal bleeding, potential organ damage. The pregnancy complicates everything. Save them both, Tae-sung's voice broke on the words. That's not a choice. That's a command. Dr. Yoon held his gaze, then nodded. We'll do everything we can. They wheeled Kira into the operating room. A nurse stopped Tae-sung with gentle firmness. You can't go in. Let them work. He wanted to argue, to push past and stay at her side. But rational thought reasserted itself. He would only be in the way. So he let the nurse guide him to the waiting area, sterile space with uncomfortable chairs and walls painted pale blue. The doors swung shut. Through the small window, he caught a glimpse of organized chaos before a nurse pulled the curtain. Tae-sung sat, stood, paced. His blood-soaked suit left smears on everything he touched. Kira's blood dried in the creases of his palms, under his fingernails. The first hour crawled past. Then the second. At the 2.5-hour mark, Dr. Yoon emerged, still in surgical gown, blood staining his gloves. Tae-sung was on his feet instantly. Tell me. She's alive. The baby's alive. But it was close. Exhaustion lined Dr. Yoon's face. We removed the bullets, repaired damage to her shoulder and side. The blunt force trauma fractured 3 ribs, caused significant bruising to heart and lungs. The trauma induced early labor. We had to perform emergency C-section. Your son, he's premature but viable. 28 weeks. He's in NICU now, being monitored. Small, but fighting. A son. The information should have filled him with joy. All he felt was crushing weight. And Kira? Dr. Yoon's expression grew grave. Surgery went well, but she slipped into coma afterward. It's not uncommon with this level of trauma, the body protecting itself while it heals. I can't tell you when she'll wake up. Could be hours, could be days. I want to see her. Nothing could have prepared him. Kira lay diminished by medical equipment, ventilator breathing for her, 4 lines feeding fluids and medication, monitors tracking vitals that reduced her existence to data points. Bandages covered her shoulder and side. Her skin had taken on a pallor that looked wrong. Tae-sung pulled a chair to her bedside, took her hand carefully. Her fingers were cool, limp in his grasp. This wasn't just his bodyguard lying here. This was the woman he loved. Completely. Irrevocably. He'd almost lost her because of the violence that defined his world. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry. A nurse checked monitors, withdrew quietly. Time passed unmeasured. Dr. Yoon returned. Your son is doing well. Would you like to see him? In the NICU, Tae-sung's breath caught. Minho was impossibly small, no bigger than his 2 hands together. Dark skin, Kira's coloring more than his. Shock of black hair. Tiny fingers curled into fists. A bridge between worlds, perfect fusion of their heritages. He needs a name, Dr. Yoon said quietly. Minho, Tae-sung said. Brightness and goodness. Everything I want him to be. Everything his mother already is. After 10 minutes watching Minho breathe, he returned to Kira's room, reclaimed his chair, resumed his vigil. Hours later, Dr. Yoon entered with a file folder. When we were treating Ms. Voss, we found anomalies. Her blood work showed genetic markers that are unusual. He opened the folder. She has Korean heritage. Significant Korean heritage. At least 25%, possibly more. Generational, but definitely there. The words took a moment to penetrate. When they did, reality rearranged itself. That's impossible. It's in her DNA. Dr. Yoon paused. I thought you should know. After the doctor left, Tae-sung sat in stunned silence. Kira had Korean blood. The woman he'd met by chance carried heritage connecting her to this country in ways neither had understood. As Kira fought for her life, secrets from the past were about to surface, truths that would rewrite everything about fate, family, and destiny. While Kira lay in her coma, the world outside continued with relentless momentum. Tae-sung remained at her bedside during the day, but at night he turned his attention to the betrayal that had nearly cost him everything. Minjae coordinated Shadow Lotus's response with ruthless efficiency. Jimin was found 3 days after the factory firefight, hiding in a Busan safe house that had belonged to their grandfather. When Shadow Lotus enforcers dragged him back to Seoul, he came not as family but as prisoner. Tae-sung met with him in a basement office beneath Club Elysium. Jimin sat in a metal chair, hands zip-tied, face showing signs of initial questioning. But his eyes still held defiance. You should have died in that factory, Jimin said. Hyunwoo promised me leadership once you were gone. And you believed him? Tae-sung kept his voice level. You're smarter than that, cousin. He showed me respect. Unlike you, playing house with your foreign whore while forgetting your own blood. Tae-sung's hand tightened on the desk edge. Kira took 6 bullets meant for me. She's in a coma right now because of your betrayal. Our son was born 2 months early because of the trauma. Jimin's defiance cracked. A son? You actually, he shook his head. You've dishonored everything our family built. Our father died because he couldn't see past the old ways. Tae-sung leaned forward. Hyunwoo played you. He never intended to share power. You were just a tool. Once I was dead, you would have been next. Truth showed on Jimin's face, dawning realization that resentment had been weaponized against him. What happens now? Jimin asked. You going to kill me? Tae-sung was quiet, weighing options. The old way demanded blood for blood. But Kira's voice echoed in his mind, her constant push for him to be different. You're exiled, he said finally. Stripped of all rank. You leave Seoul and never come back. If I see you again, if you contact anyone, if you cause problems, then yes, I'll kill you. But I'm giving you this one chance. Take it. After Jimin was removed, Min-jae entered with a box from Kira's apartment, personal effects Tae-sung had requested. There's something you need to see, Min-jae said, placing documents on the desk. Military records belong to Kira's father, Marcus Voss. Service in U.S. Army, then private military contracting. Operations across Africa, Middle East, and, critically, Korea during the 1980s and early 1990s. But the photographs stopped his heart. One showed younger Marcus Voss standing beside a Korean man in what looked like a warehouse. The Korean man was older, maybe 60s, with a face Tae-sung recognized from old family photos. His grandfather. Lee Dong-min, founder of Shadow Lotus. The tattoo on his grandfather's hand, the scar above his left eye, details family stories had passed down. There was no mistake. Another document, a letter from Marcus to Catherine, Kira's mother. It referenced completing the operation in Seoul and securing alliance with Lee's organization. It mentioned a woman named Kim Sun-hee who'd helped facilitate the connection. Research took 2 more days. What they uncovered rewrote everything. Marcus Voss had worked with Lee Dong-min for 5 years, facilitating weapons trades and providing security expertise. But the relationship had gone deeper. Marcus had fallen in love with Kim Sun-hee, the translator. They'd had a relationship that produced a child, a daughter born in 1988. Kim Sun-hee had been forced to give up the baby due to family pressure around mixed-race children. The child had been adopted by an American family. That child was Catherine, Kira's mother. The revelation hit like a physical blow. Kira was the granddaughter of a woman intimately connected to Shadow Lotus's founding. Her father had worked directly with Tae-sung's grandfather. Their families had been allied decades before either was born. Her sacrifice in that factory wasn't just loyalty or love. It was family protecting family, neither knowing the truth until it was almost too late. On the 5th day, Kira's fingers twitched. Tae-sung sat beside her bed, the documents spread on the table, having read through them dozens of times. He felt the subtle movement and sat up straighter, gripping her hand. Kira? Her eyelids fluttered. Once, twice. Then slowly, painfully, they opened. The world came back in fragments, harsh lights, beeping monitors, tubes making it impossible to breathe properly. Pain radiated from her shoulder and chest. But through the confusion, she saw Tae-sung's face, and his expression told her everything. They'd survived. A nurse rushed in. Dr. Yoon appeared, beginning the process of removing the breathing tube. Kira endured it with gritted teeth, tears streaming as her body fought the intrusion and removal. Finally, the tube was out. Small sips of water eased the rawness of her throat. The baby, Kira rasped, voice barely recognizable. Is alive, Tae-sung said quickly. Our son is alive. Minho. He's in NICU, premature but strong. Fighting just like his mother. Relief flooded through her so intensely it brought fresh tears. I want to see him. Dr. Yoon started to protest, but the desperate longing in her voice stopped him. Brief visit. Wheelchair only. Non-negotiable. They made the journey slowly. Every breath hurt, broken ribs protesting. The wheelchair felt both humiliating and necessary. In the NICU, the nurse guided them to a corner unit. Kira's breath caught. Minho was impossibly small, swaddled in blankets that seemed designed for dolls. His skin was darker than Tae-sung's, lighter than hers, perfect blend of their heritages. Wisps of black hair. Eyes closed, chest rising and falling with mechanical assistance. Can I hold him? After positioning her carefully, the nurse lifted Minho and placed him in Kira's arms. The world stopped. Everything, pain, fear, trauma, receded. She looked down at her son, this tiny miracle, and felt something shift fundamentally. "Hello, Minho," she whispered. "I'm your mom. I'm sorry you had to come into this world the way you did. But I promise, we're going to give you something better." Tae-sung knelt beside her chair, hand touching Minho's tiny foot. Tears ran down his face. "I should have protected you. Both of you." "Stop." Kira met his eyes. "We protect each other. That's what this is. That's what we are. You almost died. But we didn't. We're still here, Tae-sung. All three of us." He pressed his forehead to hers, careful not to jostle Minho. "There's something I need to tell you," Tae-sung said. "About your family and mine." He explained everything. The documents from her apartment, Marcus Voss's alliance with his grandfather, Kim Sun-hee and the daughter she'd been forced to give up, the bloodline connecting Kira to Shadow Lotus through generations neither had understood. Kira listened in growing wonder. Her mother's cryptic deathbed confession. The pull she'd felt toward this country. The way she'd ended up in Shadow Lotus's orbit despite astronomical odds. "My grandmother," she said slowly. "Kim Sun-hee was my grandmother. Connected to your grandfather. More than connected. She helped build foundations of Shadow Lotus. Your family and mine have been intertwined for decades. We just didn't know it. So when I took those bullets, you were protecting family. Family protecting family, exactly the way it should be." Minho stirred in Kira's arms, tiny sound of protest. They both looked down at him, this child who carried both legacies. "He deserves better than secrets," Kira said quietly. "Better than violence and hidden histories." "I know," Tae-sung replied. "And I will. I swear it." Kira's sacrifice changed everything. In the weeks following the Incheon factory, while she recovered and Minho grew stronger in NICU, Tae-sung made a choice that would define the rest of his life. Inspired by the woman who'd taken 6 bullets for him, he began dismantling Shadow Lotus's criminal operations with the same strategic precision he'd once used to build them. Money laundering fronts became legitimate businesses. Tech startups transitioned to actual ventures. He funneled assets into legal enterprises, severing ties with the underworld that had claimed his father and nearly taken everything he loved. It wasn't easy. It wasn't quick. But it was necessary. When Kira was strong enough to leave the clinic, Minho healthy enough to come home, Tae-sung made their relationship public. He faced his mother's fury, his family's outrage, the whispers from Seoul's elite about the Mafia boss and his black American bodyguard. He didn't care. Kira became his partner in every sense, not just the woman he loved, but his equal in building something new. Security advisor for his legitimate ventures. Advocate for diversity in Seoul's expat communities. The woman who'd proven that strength came in forms Korea's traditional power structures had never anticipated. Their romance, once hidden in shadows, bloomed openly. They married in a small ceremony that scandalized some and inspired others. A black woman and a former mafia boss, rewriting rules about what family could look like in modern Korea. 5 years later, their penthouse overlooked a transformed city. Minho was 6 now, growing up hearing tales of his mother's heroism. He knew the story, how his mom had been brave enough to protect his dad when bad people tried to hurt him. How she'd kept him safe even when he was still in her belly. The family thrived. Tae-sung's businesses were successful, completely legitimate. Kira ran a security consulting firm that employed women and minorities often overlooked in Korea's homogeneous corporate world. Minho attended an international school, fluent in Korean and English, comfortable in both worlds. They'd built something better. Then the envelope arrived. Unmarked, delivered to their penthouse by courier. Inside, photographs and documents, evidence of movement in the shadows. Hyunwoo Park, who disappeared after the factory, was back. Building new alliances. Old enemies with new resources. The cycle threatened to restart. Kira found Tae-sung on the balcony, staring at the evidence. She placed her hand on his shoulder. Minho appeared in the doorway, sensing tension. "Is it bad?" she asked quietly. "Could be." But when Tae-sung turned to face her, he wasn't alone anymore. Wasn't carrying this weight by himself. Kira stood beside him, scars from 6 bullets hidden beneath her shirt, but strength fully visible. Minho moved to stand between them, their bridge between worlds. "We handle it," Kira said simply. "Together. Like we always do." Tae-sung looked at his family, the woman who'd sacrificed everything, the son who represented their impossible love made real, and nodded. The difference now. They face threats as family, secrets revealed, connected by blood and choice and generations of destiny neither had understood. The past had brought them together. The present had tested them. The future was theirs to write. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. Stronger for the truth. Ready for anything. In the shadows of Seoul's underworld, a black woman from Chicago and a Korean mafia boss rewrote the rules of loyalty, love, and family. Their story proves that sometimes the greatest strength comes not from the bullets we take, but from the love we're willing to bleed for. What happens next in their journey? That's a story for another time.